There we go. That's a little neater. It's still pretty messy in there, but we're going to get to it. So we've built all of these workshops. We have removed the stockpile. Just checking my notes, sorry. Oh, it's now summer. That's nice. We should keep an eye on the surface for any new plants to gather that might have come out in the summer. But we're going to tell our dwarves to make our first thing. The thing we're going to make is going to seem kind of weird right now, but I promise that it's going to be useful. In the next stream, we're going to want to build an office for somebody. I know that seems like a little bit like, putting the icing on the cake before you've got the cake itself. But we're going to be so excited about building an office that it'll be really great for us to have some office components at hand when we get to office building. And it's easy to make now, and it's a nice starter way to show you how jobs work in Dwarf Fortress, or one of the ways jobs work in Dwarf Fortress. So, we're going to push Q to go into building settings, and we're going to go up here to our Mason's Workshop. You can see it's highlighted, and make sure that you're looking at your Mason's Workshop here, otherwise this next bit will be kind of confusing. And we're going to hit A for add new task. And this is just going to open up a big list of things the dwarves can make. And the dwarves would make stuff like this if we were just like, hey, can you make us a coffin now, please? The dwarves would be like, yeah, hell yeah, I can make you a coffin. It'd be great. We don't actually want the dwarves to make a coffin right now. We want them to make a table, which we get to by pushing T. And you can see that the job is now visible in this kind of window of the Mason's Workshop. It says construct rock table there. They're just going to construct this out of kind of any stone that they can get to that's nearby. And in this case, it's almost certainly going to be gabbro, because there is gabbro all over the room. The dwarf is going to walk into the room and go, I need to build a table. Oh, there it is. We're also going to want them to make a another thing. We're going to go add new task. And we're going to want to make a chair. We can push shift to scroll through these things, and you'll notice that a chair is not available on this screen. That is because a rock chair is called a throne, which is extremely cool. It is, however, C for chair, so we're going to push C and get the dwarves to work on constructing a rock table and a rock throne. When we unpause this, if we have a dwarf with a masonry skill, which we almost certainly do, they will head to work and start working on these things. Let's do that now. Let's push escape to get out and resume. If no dwarves kind of decide that they want to do this task, it will be because we don't have a... okay. I was going to say it would be because we don't have a mason attached. Instead, what we have is I'm pushing K to look. We have Zan Talilkol, our stoneworker, who rather than getting any of the gabbro in this room decided to take some from the stockpile and bring it all the way to the masonry table. Thank you. That's fine. Is this particularly good stone that you're hauling here, mate? I'm going to push V for view. I'm going to go over to this dwarf and I'm going to hit I for inventory. It's gabbro! Okay, fine. So let's hit escape and resume. Let's fucking... Okay, fine. Go for it. You can see that when dwarves are carrying things that are very heavy, they move very slowly, and this is good to picture as though the dwarf is like dragging it along behind them. But if we go into jobs by pushing J, we can see that Zan Talalkal, our stoneworker, is busily constructing a rock table. While we're here, let's learn about Zan Talalkal by pushing V and then enter for thoughts and preferences. It's best to slow down and just relax, says the dwarf who just dragged a chunk of gabbro. He is angry, dwelling upon getting into an argument. Oh, I wonder if he got into an argument with that dwarf we saw earlier. He's embarrassed, dwelling upon the lack of chairs. Look, folks, I keep saying it, and I keep saying it, and I feel so embarrassed every time I say it, but I do want chairs. He didn't like being caught in the snowstorm. He's 84. He is broad yet weak. He wears a long mustache arranged in double braids. He has a clear voice. He's thin lips. He's incredibly tough and very rarely sick, but he is very weak. He likes rat parchment. He likes ducks for their quacks. He has a natural inclination towards language, but he has a poor memory, poor creativity, poor spatial senses, and a poor kinesthetic sense. You know, fine. Wait, hang on a second. Someone in the chat said wagon eggs. I don't know if this is on this screen. Where are their wagon eggs? He dreams of bringing lasting peace to the world, which is good. He's currently more thoughtless. He's currently less private. He's currently more confident. He needs alcohol to get through the working day. He believes that peace is always preferable to war. He doesn't particularly respect commerce. Same. He's unfocused because he's not been able to do any abstract thinking, which is fine. And he's unhappy that he's being able to pray. Oh, he's not being able to pray. So, you know, we got a bit of a character here. Gonna hit escape, and escape again, and escape again. And he's busily making us a throne. So we're getting some office stuff kind of in production right now, which we're gonna get to, possibly even next stream. But I think it's time to... Well, actually, let's kind of make things a little bit easier for the stone hauling dwarves by pushing Q and going into our carpenter's workshop and adding a new task, because we want the carpenter's workshop to make us some wheelbarrows. So let's hit minus to scroll right down to the bottom here and get them making wheelbarrows, which we can do by pushing enter. And can you do that again for me? Because I want you to make me 3 wheelbarrows. Have at it. Oh look! He finished the chair and the table. You can see them in the bottom right of our stockpile. That's pretty cool. And we have a carpenter. I'm using K to look. We have Ingiz, our woodworker, is taking wood from the stockpile and getting to work making these wheelbarrows, which the dwarves are wheeling over to the stockpile. They're being stored in there right now, but you know, we might move them to different locations where they might be more useful to us later. We can worry about that. There's a lot of fine-tuning stockpiles you can do in this game, and I could do a whole stream about like sorting out various stockpile aspects, but I'm gonna do that in a future stream. Oh, I think KB knocked on the door. KB, hi!
Hi, how are you?
Hi, love.
You got your provisions.
Yeah, I got my provisions. I brought biscuits up. The real perm in the chat says, dwarves carry the wheelbarrow when it's empty. They're not really helping. How you doing, KB?
I'm okay.
Is that a good talk? You're tired? Should we put a light on? It's a bit gloomy.
No.
No? You good? I think KB is immediately going to have a nap. But we are not having a nap because it's time to start brewing. And of course, in order to start brewing, we need to start making barrels. My notes here just say barrel time, baby. Now, a thing to keep in mind with barrels is that dwarves fucking love putting things into barrels and taking them out of barrels. And a genuine problem that you sometimes have if you're not careful with it is that you will set up a load of barrels ready for brewing, and the dwarves will take all the barrels that you have set aside for brewing and just be like, time to fill it with other stuff. And then the game will be like, you have no barrels for brewing, which you don't want. So we are going to go into our stockpile settings by pushing a P for stockpiles. And you see where it says reserved barrels? We're going to want to set that to about 5. We're going to want to keep 5 barrels to just be like, dwarves, do not put stuff in these barrels. Don't do it, dwarves. And we're going to change that by pushing, it's another ridiculous dwarf fortress system. We're going to change that by pushing asterisk or /. I I don't know why this is super useful to us right now, asterisk and / when you could just do left and right on this menu, but who am I to complain? So I'm going to push asterisk a few times and set this to like 5. Dwarves, have fun with this. And I'm going to push escape. And I'm also going to push Q and check this stockpile here. Now the dwarves will have a maximum of 36 filled barrels in this stockpile, but that's such a big number, we probably don't need to fine-tune the stockpile with that right now, especially with our barrel reserve that we just set up. Barrel management can be kind of confusing, and I could understand people who are not familiar with the game, and including me, listening to me talk about barrels and go, I don't grasp this and it's bothering me. Here's what I'll say. So long as you make sure you've got some... Hello. So long as you make sure you've got some barrel reserves set up, that'll be fine and good. Even if you forget that, you're not going to run into a problem. You just might be a bit like, hang on a second, why don't I have any barrels? So let's start making some barrels. We want to push escape to get out of this menu, and then push Q to go to our carpenter's workshop, and hit add new task. And I want you to make me a wooden barrel, which is V. I can't help you with that one. V doesn't appear anywhere in barrel. And I want you to make me like a lot of barrels. You really can't have too many barrels. You can... Virginia is crying. You really can't have too many barrels. But we are going to make 8. Add new task. Barrel, 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 barrel. A bit later, we're going to make this a little bit easier, assigning jobs and tasks, but for the moment, this is how we're going to do it. So we're going to push enter and get these dwarves to work making barrels. While we're doing that, we're also going to want to go over to the still and push Q, and we're going to want to set this to add new task with A, and I want you to brew drink from plant. Sorry, I just have to see why Virginia's crying. I will be right back. Virginia was crying because KB had gone into another room and closed the door. So I have let her into this room, and I'm putting a blanket on my lap in case she wants to sit on my lap while we play Dwarf Fortress. Oh. Virginia? You want to come sit on my lap? Or are you just going to look sadly at the door? Oh, you want to go out? Okay, well, it's here in case she needs it. So, let's get the dwarves to make, I want the dwarves to make about 5 barrels of drink from plant. And there are some ways we can kind of govern exactly what kind of drink the dwarves make. But we're going to get them, we can be nice and non-specific right now. So we just want them to brew drink from plant, and then we want to add a new task, and brew drink from plant, and add a new task, and brew drink from plant. I'll do that 2 more times, so you've got 5 things going. And hit escape and get to work. Now, in a kind of sense, the fortress is sort of weirdly, nearly self-sufficient for this amount of dwarves right now. You can see they're carrying a barrel down there and getting to brewing. We can make alcohol, which is the most important thing. We have a farm going. The plump helmet zone will keep... every time we use a plump helmet in a thing, we'll extract some plump helmet seeds from it, which can then go back into the plump helmet farm. Dwarves will eat the food they've brought, and they'll also eat plants that we gather on the surface. So the fortress is going to kind of be able to run okay for a bit of time, although we will obviously want to improve it as we go. And we haven't even begun to get to, like, you know, what we have plans for the fortress with. I'm going to... the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to deal with this kind of garbo that we've got, like, lying around. And And we're going to do that by making a... We're going to deal with the Garbo Gabra. We're going to do that by making a garbage dump. And garbage dump is kind of a weird word in Dwarf Fortress. When you hear garbage, you think of like stuff that you don't want to use or you don't need. In Dwarf Fortress, garbage isn't really that. That's closer to refuse. Garbage is much more like... it's kind of like a fairly unrefined stockpile. It's just stuff you might need at some point. You don't need to keep it as all as classified as a stockpile. You just want your dwarves to kind of deal with it as they go. That is what Dwarf Fortress calls garbage. Nora Benefrin in the chat says, "Is Jack saying plump helmet?" Yes, I am. The plump helmet is the mushroom in Dwarf Fortress. So we're gonna make a garbage dump. And we are going to clean up all the stuff that has been on the floor and put it in this garbage dump, more or less. So stockpiles we've made of kind of various sizes, but dumps are sort of special in that they can be 1 by 1. And in fact, it's really good for them to be 1 by 1. Otherwise, it'll start getting really confusing if you want to try and find a specific item in the garbage dump. You just want to make it like 1 by 1. And the dwarves will actually manage to fit as much as they want in there. Okay, so remember how we made our meeting area for the dwarves in this area down here and our pasture upstairs using something called an activity zone? We're going to make another one of those, and we're going to get to that by pushing I. We can see our meeting zone is highlighted when we are in the zones menu, but we're going to want to make one in our workshop area, specifically next to our masons, because if we're going to be making a big dump zone of a load of stones, we're going to want it to be near the masons, in the same way that we put the wood stockpile near the carpenters. So we're going to want to go here, we're going to want to push enter to start one, and then we're going to want to push enter again to place it. This is 1 by 1. And we're going to designate this D for garbage dump. So now this little tiny 1 by 1 zone here is a garbage dump. And we can back out of this. And now we want to tell the dwarves to start kind of hauling the garbage to the garbage dump, which we're going to do by pushing D for designations, B for building properties, and then D for dump items. And then we're just going to make a designation. So let's start up here and say, I want you to dump this piece of rock and this piece of rock. Not the cat. The cat won't be dumped. And then let's push down to catch that little chunk of rock in the doorway. Now, if we unpause the game, you will see that the dwarves will start grabbing that stone when they get a chance and carrying it down to our dump zone down next to the mason's workshop. And they've put it there. Now, you got to be careful with dumping objects because the dwarves will dump into that dump zone any object that is under the cursor, including like stuff from other stockpiles and things, I believe. So you just have to be kind of judicious about how you do it. For example, I'm going to push D, B, D to dump items again, and I'm going to say, hey, dump these 3 bits of stone here. And dump, I'm pushing enter twice, this bit of stone, and dump these 2 bits of stone, and dump this one here. And I'm going to hit escape, and they're going to do it. For that reason, it's kind of good to mine out an empty space and then dump all the items in it before you start putting objects in. But I wanted to get stockpiles and things running before we built a kind of garbage dump area. Now, all of the stone that's in there right now is kind of forbidden to dwarves right now. The dwarves are like, that is a dump, and we don't want you to do anything with it. So we're going to make it available to our stonemason dwarves and people like that by pushing D for designations, B for building properties, and then we're going to want to push... Wait, hang on, let me just... Oh, I think we're actually fine. I don't think stuff is actually forbidden right now. Just in case, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to designate this area as reclaimed so they can go for it. Although I don't think we had a problem there. I think the dwarves, I think I was reading something wrong or misunderstanding something, and the dwarves always had access to that spot. If they didn't, we'll notice.